Woohoo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. We've got so much to get to. I am going to get to this press release. This is kind of insane. This is explosive. This was just issued, I think yesterday. This press release. It's a complaint that was filed with the U.S. Department of Education, and it accuses universities, including Illinois State University, of violating students' rights of privacy. Okay, so there is a press release, apparently at the heart of the at the heart of the legal effort is Desi Anderson, a previous Illinois State Representative candidate, and she's lodged a formal complaint. She's got a couple of lawyers, Eric Cardle, and this is MKE Law. I'm looking at the press release right now, and yeah, so basically, I'd imagine what's going on here. And we know that this has been going on. Elon Musk kind of tweeted about this, where universities are giving up students' information. And, if you're an Illinois State University student and you're listening this morning, you might get text messages from Democrats all of the time. And you're curious because I vote Republican, or I've never voted, or and you're getting these text messages about where to vote that you haven't voted yet, and you're confused by that. And where did they get your phone number? Where did this NGO, this non-government organization, get your phone number? Where did they get your information? And this complaint alleges, the crux of it really is that they violated. So the complaint demands that the DOE enforce the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, and immediately act against known violations tied to the All-In Campus Democracy Challenge. This is an NGO affiliated with the Progressive Student organized on college campuses. So this is really interesting. So this is a legal filing with the DOE. It's a complaint. And that's a big no-no, because look into FERPA. This is the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. You can't be given students' information, and allegedly these universities do this, where they give your information to these NGOs, who then try to get you to go out and vote for Democrats. They're Democrat progressive NGOs. Okay, so when we call them indoctrination camps, are we really lying? No. Who's to blame for tripling your water rate in Bloomington? Cody Hendricks and everybody else who voted for it. The water rates will increase 33%. They increased 33% last year, May 1st, 2024. They increased by 33%. They're going to increase another 33% May 1st. That's just right around the corner, folks. And then they're going to increase a final 33% on May 1st, 2026. So tripling your water rate. Who voted for that? Well, I can tell you who voted no. That'd probably be easier. Sheila Montney and Kentley. That's it. So thank you, Cody Hendricks. Woohoo! Water rates increasing, and you might not even be able to drink your water by May 1st. Maybe not. Maybe not. So after May 1st, 2026, by the way, the water rates, they're just going to go with inflation, or with the CPI index of water, sewer, stormwater, and solid waste. Okay, so they're going to continue to increase after that, just not by as much, probably. Unless they vote for it again to increase your water rates. But Jenna Kearns, she increased your water rate. She voted for it, and Ward 1 has a better option. Benjamin Zimmerman, he probably will say the pledge. I'm not going to say that he definitely will, because you never know. But Jenna Kearns, I know that she doesn't say the pledge of allegiance at these council meetings. So I want to get to a few things. I want to get to Scott Jennings and the left-wingers on CNN. He calls them out and he says, look, what's wrong with you for celebrating these terrorist attacks against these Tesla owners and against these Tesla dealerships? These are terrorist attacks. I'm going to get to the definition of domestic terrorism that is, laid out on, it is the FBI's definition of domestic terrorism. And that's exactly what lighting cars on fire is. It's domestic terrorism. So I want to get to that, but also the San Francisco Pride. They're facing major financial troubles. $300,000, I think they're short to put on their June 2025 Pride event at San Francisco. They're running into troubles because some of these bigger corporations are not sponsoring the event anymore. It's not worth it anymore. Okay, so a lot of these big corporate companies are not sponsoring it, including Meta and Anheuser-Busch. So we're going to get to that. And then I came across this video. Hilarious. I've told you many times that people don't like 15-minute cities. People have done studies, like the downtown Bloomington streetscape. People have done studies, and most of the time these things are unsuccessful. Why? Because human beings are naturally like more. When you give them their freedom, they want to be out, and then travel into work. So suburb life. They don't really want to be cooped up in a 15-minute city. So efforts to, recreate downtown Bloomington into a 15-minute city. Let's just be honest with what that is. Downtown Bloomington streetscape. And then there's this whole plan to revitalize the downtown Bloomington area and create a 15-minute city. It's never going to work because human beings aren't like that. You can't give them everything they need in a little tiny box, okay, and expect them to stay in it. That we're just not built that way. So this farmer is using his chickens to illustrate the progressives' really terrifying plans for how we are to be allowed to live our lives, which is in these 15-minute cities. Okay, so we're going to get to all of it here on Conservative Cat. Like I said, we are going to get to that press release. It came across my desk this morning, and I was like, I was like, whoa, this is a explosive. I remember, getting a lot of these like get out the vote initiative like text messages on my phone when I was on Illinois State University's campus. And I was always confused. I always voted Republican, right? And I was like, man, I'm gonna keep getting all of these NGOs from Democrats that they're texting me and asking me to get out the vote. I was like, I wonder where they got my info. So they got my name and my phone number and things like that. So what this complaint alleges is that these universities are violating the FERPA, the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, and that a lot of these NGOs affiliated with gathering that confidential personal data from the university, they are also violating it because they know that they can't go and try to squeeze this information out of the university. And then also the university, right? They shouldn't be giving this over to these types of organizations. So the legal filing asserts that universities sharing student data with these organizations are violating FERPA and therefore should face immediate termination of all federal funding unless they cease participation. Furthermore, the complaint calls for the DOE to direct the Department of Justice to validate compliance and take enforcement actions as necessary. Compliance with the FERPA, the FERPA. So this is the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. This is a huge thing because once we get the students back, once we just take the goggles off, right, and we get the indoctrination type and non-government organizations out of there, once we get those and they're violating law, once we enforce the law really that's on the books and we stop sharing students' information with these Democrats essentially, we're going to get the young person vote back. And Gen Z, they're more traditional than millennials. It's already kind of tracking that way where they're going to be Republicans. Gen Zers, not millennials. Millennials are too far gone. But the Gen Zers and younger generations, they're already, they're already on pace to vote Republican. Now, if we were to take the really illegal activity, the alleged illegal activity, we don't know the results of this complaint yet. If we were to take that alleged illegal activity off where they're not sending text messages to these people and getting in their ears, these college students, if we were to take that out of there, I mean, we would be winning, right? And this might be why Republicans struggle so much in the state is because universities are coordinating with these NGOs who are, progressive NGOs, Democrat NGOs, um, and you can't beat that, right? So, like, if they're violating the law, it's always going to be unfair for Republicans in this state when it comes to elections, because they're violating the law and they're obtaining data that nobody else gets to obtain, okay, from these students. So we're going to get to that. I'm going to unpack more of it, of this press release, in just a little bit, but I want to get to Scott Jennings first. I think that this is important that we know that, hey, this is the definition of terrorism: violent criminal acts committed by individuals and groups to further ideological goals stemming from domestic influences such as political, religious, social, racial, or environmental in nature. Okay, so label this whatever you want. I'm going to call it what it's factually correct to call it: domestic terrorism. Them getting into these Tesla dealerships and trying to just blow up the Teslas, light them on fire. And I love how CNN, they actually said this in one of their articles, that it's peaceful. Like the BLM riots, right? They were mostly peaceful. I will never forget that. It was a reporter, I think it was CNN. They were, saying this is a mostly peaceful protest. And then there's fire in the background and people screaming. It's like mostly peaceful protest. Take a listen to Scott Jennings calling out the CNN leftists and putting them in their place for celebrating, really, the terrorist attacks. Here we go.
There's also, on the subject of Elon Musk, there's been all kinds of vandalism against Teslas and Tesla dealerships all over the country. Las Vegas, Kansas City, Encinitas, Buffalo Grove, Littleton, Mass. I grew up right next to Littleton, Mass. Loveland, Colorado, Tigard, Oregon, all over the place.
The other night, Donald Trump said these are domestic terrorists. Everybody laughed about it and scoffed at it. That video looks like terrorism to me. I mean, it's obviously an organized, coordinated effort, however people are communicating with each other, to do this to people around the country who chose to buy a Tesla at some point in the past, many of whom I'm sure are Democrats who bought them in the first place, all because their entire political worldview is ruled by their emotions. And that's the American left right now. It is one angry mob after another willing to take things into their own hands, up to and including keying, firebombing, and otherwise vandalizing cars and car dealerships and charging stations. It's outrageous. It is terrorism. People ought to be put in jail and left there for a very long time and be taught a lesson. So this right here, what's going on with a guy who helps our country, who runs successful companies, who doesn't have to be doing this, and now one of his companies is under systematic terroristic threat and violence all over the country, and people seem to be laughing about it or fine with it. It's outrageous. I've sat at this table and had people say, we should cut Elon Musk from the government totally. He rescued our astronauts today. Is that what we want? The treatment of this guy is outrageous. These people who are doing this need to be found, put in jail, and made an example of. That's my point.
Okay, so these are coming, like the people who are celebrating these attacks, they won't shut up about January 6th. Okay, so they won't condemn terrorism when it's, politically inconvenient for them. So that was Scott Jennings, and he said what needed to be said. If you're willing to take things into your own hands, like firebombing and vandalizing cars and dealerships and charging stations, this is an emotional mob, and really they're coordinating. So they're hitting multiple cities in the nation. There was actually this week a Tesla. There was a Tesla dealership. They set fire to all the cars. It was the Las Vegas Service Center. And they set fire to all these Teslas. And I don't know about you, but seeing a line of cars on fire, it kind of feels like terrorism to me, right? So, and this is coming from the same sides who won't condemn it. This is coming from the same sides who won't shut up about January 6th, okay? So, Jennings, he said many car owners, okay, are likely Democrats. People who own these Teslas are likely Democrats. Like I told you yesterday, there's no way now you'd catch me in an electric vehicle. I love my combustible engine. Okay, I love gas. So there is no way that you'd catch me in one of those. They're kind of cool. I won't lie. They can get pretty fast. but I like the shaking. You know what's the best is like an old truck and that it shakes and you're not too sure, but like you know there's power there. Yeah, I'm not. I don't like the electric vehicle because you can't hear anything. That's what freaks me out. So, it should be condemned for what it is. It's domestic terrorism. I gave you the definition of the FBI's definition of domestic terrorism, and I think the shoe fits. CNN, they, of course, on their articles, and I've got all the receipts here, folks, in their articles, they call this peaceful. There's peaceful protests going on. That's obviously not true. We see the videos of the fire. We see the videos of the vandalism and people banging on the windows of people who are driving down the street in Teslas. So they dance around, violent extremist acts committed by radical mobs in their party, and they won't label it what it is, the left. They won't label it what it is because it's politically inconvenient. And in the past several years, we went from, mostly peaceful protest to peaceful protest, the peaceful Tesla protest. So we started out with mostly peaceful protest. Now they're just peaceful. So they do this all of the time. It's a pattern, with the BLM riots. So in case it wasn't clear, gaslighting Americans and disbelieving their own eyes, okay, to make your side look good never really wins, and it never will swing voters to your side, okay? So what CNN is trying to do is trying to gaslight you into believing that this isn't happening, that everything is peaceful, and they're holding up like signs, okay, at Tesla dealerships, and that they are peacefully protesting. That's not what's going on here. And when you lie to people like that, when you try to gaslight people, that's never going to win people to your side. So the goal here is to paint Musk as a villain, as Hitler, and they can dance around the definitions all they want. Is it protest, terrorism? The media is not fooling anyone. This is complete nonsense. And this is why CNN, this is why ABC, it's completely irrelevant. It's totally irrelevant. People who watch it are brainwashed, and the few people who do, right? And a lot of people don't even watch these platforms anymore because of the gaslighting that happens. So I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Hey, good morning. Go ahead, smash that like button. I do want to get to this press release. This is kind of insane. So let's just continue from the press release with the FERPA and the college universities. A plain reading of FERPA requires the U.S. Secretary of Education to intervene and prevent universities from unlawfully disclosing student records under the guise of voter engagement efforts. This is what an attorney said, the lead attorney, Eric Cardell, said on the case. He said if universities are providing student data for ballot harvesting, it's a clear violation of federal law, and the DOE has a duty to act immediately. The All-In Campus Democracy Challenge and National Student Clearinghouse, NSLVE. See, there's all kinds of acronyms here, and organizations claim to promote student voter engagement. But the legal challenge highlights how these initiatives facilitate unauthorized access to student personal information, creating a pipeline for illegal ballot harvesting. The complaint underscores that universities participating in these programs are effectively abiding and abetting violations of federal election law. This is a student at Illinois State University. I was shocked to learn my personal student data was being shared without my explicit consent. Braden Gonzalez, a current student at Illinois State University. As a student, I trusted my university to protect my enrollment information, not hand it over to third-party organizations like National Student Clearinghouse and the National Study of Learning, Voting, and Engagement. Okay. So these are like third-party organizations. I've never agreed to have my information used to track my voting habits or to be part of a Get Out the Vote initiative run by nonprofits like All In Campus Democracy Challenge. See, and this is what the left is up to. They want to force people into voting. They will do whatever it takes. They don't care if there's violations of federal law happening, federal election law. They don't care if they're violating laws that require them to protect information. Okay, the universities, they don't care, because at the end of the day, what they want is the vote. Okay, so I told you about the compulsory voting, the bill that they've got currently sitting in Springfield, where they're going to try to force you to vote and make it a civic duty. Okay, and they think that voting is a civic duty, and that's what they're going to try to hide behind, is this engagement, this civic engagement. And it's just wrong. So she goes on, I was never informed that my student records would be cross-referenced with voter files to measure and influence voter turnout. The fact that my data was used to shape election strategies without my knowledge or permission is deeply concerning. Regardless of my political affiliation, every student should have the right to decide how their personal information is being used, especially when it comes to something so personal as voting. Transparency and consent should be the foundation of any voter engagement effort. And universities should be held accountable for sharing student data without clear and informed permission. So Three Stones LLC and Great Education Initiative, GEI, are supporting the legal action taken to ensure election integrity and the protection of student privacy. Each stand against unlawful exploitation of students by higher education institutions. So these organizations are standing with Desi Anderson's complaint with the DOE here. They're alleging that the university is giving student information out to some of these NGOs that are ultimately run by Democrats. They're Democrat NGOs. So this is what these organizations say, Three Stones and GEI, the Great Education Initiative. Our colleges and universities exist to educate and prepare the nation's best and brightest students for their chosen careers, not to serve as tools for influencing local and state elections as perpetual political battlegrounds. This is what Anderson said. Desi Anderson, I believe. Yes, Desi Anderson. Unfortunately, even the most well-intentioned civic engagement initiatives on these campuses have been exploited by partisan nonprofits, non-government organizations working alongside political operatives to access and misuse students' private data. Programs like All-In Campus Democracy Challenge, the National Study of Learning, Voting, and Engagement, the National Student Clearinghouse facilitate collection and analysis of student enrollment and voting data without students' explicit consent. Okay, so this confidential data then is leveraged to shape electoral outcomes, raising serious concerns about privacy, transparency, and the integrity of our democratic process. Wow. Yeah, this is incredible. That was Anderson, Desi Anderson. She's lodged a formal complaint with the U.S. Department of Education. That's big. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the News and Talk Bloomington Normal. I promise you we are going to get to this one story about the San Francisco Pride. Okay, so they announced that they have financial issues. Yikes. We are healing. The world is healing from this madness. So San Francisco Pride, they're faced to lose I think it's $300,000. They announced a shortfall because major sponsors have pulled: Meta, Comcast, Anheuser-Busch, Guinness, Smirnoff, all of these different organizations. They're all pulling out and they're withdrawing support. They should have withdrawn support for the first one. I'm going to be honest with you, because I'm going to show you a clip. I mean, straight up, last San Francisco Pride 2024, June 2024, there were multiple men exposed in front of children and teenagers. Okay. Public nudity is outlawed and has been outlawed in San Francisco back in 2012. Okay. Public nudity. But apparently it's legal at a pride parade. Okay. So if I was a company, I would not be supporting illegal activity, right? Speaking of illegal activity, let's get to this. This was released. It's a news release. Regarding a complaint launched by Desi Anderson. She's a previous Illinois State Representative candidate. She ran against Sharon Chung. She has launched a formal complaint with the U.S. Department of Education. Now, the complaint demands that the DOE enforce the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, and they want and to immediately act against. So they want the DOE to act against violations, all known violations tied to the All-In Campus Democracy Challenge. This is an NGO affiliated with the Progressive Student Organization on college campus. It's called National Student Clearinghouse. There's also this, it's so wild to me, all of these, what do I call them? Like acronyms, right? There's so many NGOs out there, and they're all acting under the guise of civic engagement. Oh, we just want voter turnout to come out. But they're going about it the wrong way. Okay, so I want to get to this. So the NSLVE, that stands for National Study of Learning Voting Engagement. Okay, so there's two organizations here. Okay, and they're working with All-In Campus Democracy Challenge. Okay. They are illegally gathering confidential and personal data, says the press release. And they're working, so Desi Anderson is working with an attorney. Here's what the lead attorney on the case says. A plain reading of the FERPA, so this is FERPA, the act, the Privacy Act, requires the U.S. Secretary of Education to intervene and prevent universities from unlawfully disclosing student records under the guise of voter engagement efforts. If universities are providing student data for ballot harvesting, it's a clear violation of federal law, and the DOE has a duty to act immediately. Okay, so the legal filing asserts that the universities sharing the student data with these organizations, those three nonprofits I told you about, or non-government organizations, okay, the legal filing asserts that these universities sharing that data with those organizations are violating the FERPA Act, so therefore they should face immediate termination of all federal funding unless they cease participation. Furthermore, the complaint calls for the DOE to direct the Department of Justice to validate compliance and to make sure that they are complying and to take enforcement actions if necessary. So the All-In Campus Democracy Challenge, okay, and then the NSC and the NSLVE, okay, they claim to promote student voter engagement. But the legal challenge highlights how these initiatives facilitate unauthorized access to student personal information, creating a pipeline for illegal ballot harvesting. Okay, the complaint underscores that universities participating in these programs are effectively aiding and abetting violations of federal election law. So this is really interesting. Here's a student, Braden Gonzalez, a current student of Illinois State University. Here's what they say. Here's what they say. I was shocked to learn my personal student data was being shared without my explicit consent for voter engagement efforts. As a student, I trusted my university to protect my information, not hand it over to third-party organizations like NSC and like the NSVE. I never agreed to have my information used to track my voting habits and to be a part of this targeted Get Out the Vote initiative run by nonprofits like All-In Campus Democracy Challenge. The student goes on and says, I was never informed that my student records would be cross-referenced with voter files to measure the influence of voter turnout. So they're like ballot harvesting, I suppose. So I don't know, like they're trying to bank votes. I don't know how the nonprofit does it. They're just taking information from students, and that alone is a big no, right? They can't be handing over this information to like third-party individuals. Like we should be protecting our students, right? We should be following the law. Okay, so and this is all alleged. We'll have to see what the complaint, how this turns out. But this is shocking and explosive, right? So the fact that my data, this is what the student says, was used to shape election strategies without my knowledge or permission is deeply concerning. Regardless of my political affiliation, every student should have the right to decide how their personal information is being used, especially when it comes to something as personal as voting. Transparency and consent should be the foundation of any voter engagement effort, and universities should be held accountable for sharing student data without clear and informed permission. So Three Stones LLC and the Great Education Initiative, they're supporting this legal action taken by Desi Anderson. This is legal action for election integrity, the protection of student privacy. Here's what Desi Anderson says. She's quoted in the press release. Our college and universities exist to educate and prepare the nation's best and brightest students for their chosen careers, not serve as tools for influencing local and state elections as perpetual political battlegrounds. Unfortunately, even the most well-intentioned civic engagement initiatives on campus have been exploited by partisan nonprofits and non-government organizations working alongside political operatives to access and misuse students' private data. Programs like All in Campus Democracy Challenge, the National Study of Learning, Voting, and Engagement, the National Student Clearinghouse facilitate collection and analysis of student enrollment and voting data without the student's explicit consent. The confidential data is then leveraged to shape electoral outcomes, okay? Raising concerns about privacy, transparency, and integrity of our democratic process of voting, okay? So this is explosive. Of course, your information, if you're a student at Illinois State University, should not be shared with non-government organizations that you might not even particularly agree with. Maybe you are protesting voting. Maybe you don't ever want to vote ever in your life. And guess what? That's okay. Okay. If that's something that you don't want to do, you can abstain from elections. You don't have to go out and vote. And I just think about the compulsory voting. This is like step one of compulsory voting. Compulsory voting is not legal in the state of Illinois as of right now. Okay, so they're trying. Australia has it. They really want to force these kids to vote, these students to go vote, and they really want to gather their data. They want to analyze the data, and then they try to leverage that data, like Desi Anderson said, to shape electoral outcomes. And that's what this is all about, is trying to take it by force, okay? Take elections by force. And that's not cool, because just as much as you have a right to sit out in elections, you have just as much as you have a right to go vote in elections, you have a right to sit out. All right, I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat. We're going to come back with that San Francisco Pride Parade, where they are in the hole a little bit. By $300,000, and they're hurting for funds. So I'm going to be right back. Good morning, Lisa. Hey, better late than never. It's okay. Good morning from Hawaii. I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate it. Listeners from Hawaii, how exciting. Yeah, and they're both Obama originated. So these organizations, I'm not sure what ones you're talking about. To be honest, Jacqueline, I have not dug into these organizations as much as I probably should have before coming on. I don't know a ton about these organizations. All I know at this point is that there's been a complaint launched, and they're saying that the university handed over this data, and really we shouldn't get too far off from that. Like that alone is a big deal, where you're violating allegedly FERPA. So this is the federal. Even if it wasn't Obama originated, even if it was like Republicans, okay, or even if it was, I don't know, a non-government organization for puppy dogs, the Humane Society or something like that, and they're sending you constantly messages on your cell phone about how they want you to go donate this puppy, and they'll send you like like little puppy dogs. You know what I mean? Like, come adopt little Lucky. He needs you. You know what I mean? They can't do that. They can't be giving out your information to any nonprofit organization or third party that you hadn't consented to. Okay, just because you're going to the university does not mean that they own you. Okay, and that's what really this is about. But it's also about, you're right, Obama originated. I wonder if it's the All-In Democracy Challenge, Campus Democracy Challenge. This is the NGO affiliated with these progressive student organizations on campus. So they are the Student Clearinghouse and the NSLVE program. These are NGOs affiliated with the see, and this is how they do it. It's also very confusing. So I'm going to try to show you a graphic. And I tried to make sense of it this morning, and I had a hard time, to be honest with you. So I'm going to show you a graphic. They actually include in the complaint. You guys are going to like this. Okay, here we go. Share this tab. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Okay, this is a graphic, and let's see if you can zoom in on this here. Okay, yep, here we go. Okay, so I can't really, so this is confidential information. So the university student data is right here, and it's going to, there's a federal requirement here. There's a federal requirement here, unlawful data sharing right here. Okay, so it goes to the National Student Clearinghouse. This is a nonprofit organization. Okay, so the university gives it to the NSC. At least this is what the complaint is alleging. Okay, then they give it to the NSLVE. Okay, this is like so crazy. Like the lengths at which these people will go to influence an election is insanity to me. This seems like a lot of work. I don't know who the hell came up with it, but it's bizarre. So it goes here, okay, the data there, okay, and then they share that data again, university aggregated student data report, okay, but then they take it Catalyst L and L2. I mean, this is really confusing. Get out the vote now, or DNC is connected here. Okay, so government university sponsored. I'm trying to make sense of it right now. I'm having a hard time, but I just wanted to show you this. I'm not really understanding. I'd have to read through the complaint. Like I said, this is just in, so I got to read through the complaint. But if you want a copy of it, I'll download it for you. But yeah, this is really interesting. The graphic here. Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Chrissy says, personal information is a commodity. It's bought and sold constantly. Yeah, I wonder if the university is just handing it over to the National Student Clearinghouse, the NSLVE, or these, different non-government organizations. I don't know. Obviously, it's got to probably come out in court of some kind. It's got to go through the legal process, but I wonder if they're selling it. If that's the case, it's even worse, probably, if the university is selling it, because not only are you charging tuition, but then you're also, you're also, selling the personal information. The problem with that, like, yes, personal information is a commodity. Advertising, things like that. But this is a different space. We're talking about a university, and we're talking about a law that currently exists, which is that FERPA, like I had said. It's the Family Education Rights Privacy Act. Okay, so the complaint demands that the DOE enforce the FERPA. Okay. and that there's violations tied to the All-In Campus Democracy Challenge, the National Student Clearinghouse, the NSLVE, and that they're illegally gathering. So that's the thing, is personal info, yeah, it can be bought and sold. Like on your Facebook, right? You obviously, if you have Facebook, they're buying and selling your information all of the time. Like they're selling your personal information all of the time. But you agree to terms and services. Okay, we're talking about no consent. Okay, allegedly that the universities didn't obtain consent. At least that's what the student said. That's how we know that they didn't obtain consent, because the student in the press release says, "I was shocked to learn my personal data was being shared without my explicit consent." Okay, so I feel like you just enrolling into a university doesn't necessarily mean that you give consent for that information to go everywhere. This is why FERPA exists. So it's a little different when, you're agreeing to terms and services, when you're visiting a website, when you're, taking out social media accounts and all of that. It's a little different because you give explicit consent by checking a box, the terms and services. Okay, you might not read through it, but you did give consent by checking the box. Okay. Now this, I don't know. I know that I would receive text messages like that all the time from non-government organizations. I always thought it was weird because I always voted for Republicans, and I was like so confused as to why they were sending me text messages. I was like, whatever data you get, maybe that was the point, though, is to get Republicans on campus to switch their vote over. But yeah, I like what the student says here, regardless of my political affiliation. So regardless of where I line up politically, every student should have a right to decide how their personal information is being used, especially when it comes to something as personal as voting. And the partnership here, like obviously these non-government organizations, they're tied to the DNC in some sort of way. Somebody brought it up on the stream here. You guys can always text me, 309-451-9299. These are both Obama, like these organizations are Obama originated. So, you're giving information in a partisan way, okay, to organizations that clearly are affiliated with clearly Democrat affiliated organizations. And that's unfair. Obviously, right? So I want to get to this. The San Francisco, the Pride thing. They are out of money, folks. They are out of money. The Pride, San Francisco Pride is facing $300,000 shortfall after major sponsors like Meta, Comcast, Anheuser-Busch, La Creme Wines, Diageo, I don't know. They make Guinness and Smirnoff, the company. They have all withdrawn their support. According to Fox News, the SF San Francisco Pride executive director Suzanne Ford said the show will still go on, but the organizers are going to have to make do with a smaller budget. Aww. I'm so sad. Not. Ford expressed suspicion that this is part of the wave of businesses distancing themselves from diversity, equity, inclusion programs under the Donald Trump administration. The tone has changed in the country, she says. Businesses already hedged their bets, and I think people who this isn't their hardcore value in their corporation, maybe they're rethinking their investment. Okay. Unclear how many companies make Pride a hardcore value, but I doubt it's as many as these organizers think. Why? Because corporations have a job to do. They have a product to make, and yeah, hardcore value of like what you do in your bedroom is really not in my business. And like I'd imagine it's not as many corporations as this individual thing. So Ford. Suzanne Ford, she's the executive director of SF Pride here, said that 5 corporations pulled their sponsorships for SF Pride, resulting in approximately a loss of $300,000. I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat. Catch me on the other side. Hey, good morning. Go ahead and smash that like button. Remember, do not call list. Yeah, I work for a company that bought those lists monthly, then spams them. Yeah, so yeah, 100% personal info. But there's something different on campuses, and that's what I'm getting at here is, because of that act, the federal or the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. Okay, this is a law, and the university should be abiding by that, right? So you pay a lot of money to be at this university, and the fact that they go above and beyond and they try to just take that data and I don't know if they're selling it. I don't know if they're selling it, but in a way, kind of, because if they give that data, we all know that Democrats are the ones who are constantly fighting for more dollars to be dedicated to public universities. So in a way, they are getting something in return when the Democrats are elected. They might not necessarily be selling it, but it's of their best interest to give this data, obviously, to Democrat organizations specifically. So whether the university knew that they were giving it to Democrat organizations, I don't know, but they were giving it to these organizations who claim to be nonpartisan, but they're not. They have connections with the DNC. We saw that in this graphic that I shared with you. Here, hold on, I'll pop it back up. There it is right there, the DNC. So there is some connection going on here with the Democrat Party, with these NGOs. And if that's that, they're going to benefit from this, the university. Why? Because Democrats always propose billions and millions of dollars. I forget how much it was. The state of Illinois Democrats, they've proposed billions to go to these public universities. So I am going to come back. We're going to talk about the San Francisco Pride. I also want to talk about this little farmer guy who does this, it's a really cool thing for your Friday. He uses chickens to kind of illustrate the progressives' 15-minute cities. Okay, these terrifying plans to make you stay in a 15-minute city. All you need is in this 15-minute city. But this is an explosive complaint. I predicted these investigations. Yeah, I did not know that it was going to come to this. This is a pretty substantial complaint. And I hope that it goes somewhere. I think that it will. The DOE, they've got a lot on their plate right now. There's DOE complaint currently from Deerfield Public Schools, right? When it comes to Illinois, Illinois is just violating all kinds of federal things. And now that there is, somebody who's actually going to look into this stuff, this Trump administration DOE, and they should, if there's violations of law here, they definitely should look into that, and they definitely should take action and make sure that the university is following the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. Socialist NGOs, yeah. Well, and that's what I wanted to get at. So Illinois, public university, spending. So the Democrats in the state house, they are trying to allocate billions, I mean a ton of money, to these public universities, and they're trying to secure that funding for higher education. Sorry, excuse me, yawn. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Good morning. Hey, you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. I so do appreciate you being here this morning. I'm drinking my coffee. I've been yawning this morning, which is really weird. I don't know. Sometimes on Friday I get a little out of gas, I'm sure you do too. So text me 309-451-9299. Go ahead and find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You guys can subscribe. Now, this is interesting. This complaint we've been talking about this morning, they're calling for legal action to stop the illegal ballot harvesting on university campuses. So this is groundbreaking. This is a legal initiative that has been filed to halt illegal ballot harvesting of university students. It's a legal effort led by MKE Law. So this is, they're representing Desi Anderson. We know that Desi Anderson is a previous Illinois state representative candidate. She ran against Sharon Chung. She's launched a formal complaint against the U.S. Department of Education. Now, what the lead attorney says here is very, very crucial to remember, okay? The plain reading of FERPA requires, so FERPA is the Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act, okay? The plain reading of that act requires the U.S. Secretary of Education to intervene and prevent universities from unlawfully disclosing student records under the guise of voter engagement efforts. If universities are providing student data for ballot harvesting, it is a clear violation of federal law, and the DOE has a duty to act immediately. So we were talking about this, and somebody brought up like, oh, people sell personal information all the time. I don't know if the university is necessarily selling it, but what's really interesting here is they will benefit from it. Okay, they Democrats at a state level, at a federal level, they push for higher education dollars for public universities. Okay, so it's in their best interest to get. The public the voter information to Democrats. Okay, that's essentially what this is, to Democrat affiliated nonprofit organizations. Obviously, because the Democrats they promise higher education funding all of the time to pad the pockets really of these very, very well-paid professors or administrators, ISU administration and faculty. Okay, not saying all ISU professors are paid very, very well. I'm just saying there's a lot of fat cats in university life. Okay, just take a look at the highest paid individuals at Illinois State University, and your jaw is going to drop. Okay, most of actually the government employees who are paid more than $100,000 here in the state of Illinois are of university type, mostly Chicago. They're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think the highest paid government employee in Illinois is actually somebody out of Loyola or Chicago, some sort of university there. So it's in their best interest to get the Democrats elected. Okay, so this is an operation for the interests of the university, and that's a big no-no. Okay, if people want to naturally elect representatives who are for public education and for funding these public universities, then let that happen naturally. Okay, you can't force or try to tip the scales in your favor. If people want to vote in Republicans who want fiscal financial responsibility, okay, and not give overall tax money to these fat cats in the universities, okay, and they want to keep more money in your pocket, then you have to let that happen naturally as well. That's the system in which that's the democratic process. So we were talking about that. You guys have been really engaged with that story. I do want to get back to the San Francisco thing because I think it's hilarious. They lost $300,000 for their current Pride event. They're trying to figure out how to pull that loss of funding. The overall budget goal is $2.3 million, which is insane to me. To throw on a gay party, like that's what Pride is. Okay, the San Francisco Pride Parade, it's a party for gays. Like, to throw on a party it's $2.3 million you want? Like, this is insane. They have $1 million already committed, and now they need to focus on the $1.3 million to meet their target. So this is what Suzanne Ford said. She's the executive director of San Francisco Pride. We remain focused on securing the necessary funds and appreciate the continued support from our community and from our partners. This organization is astonished as to why they remain deeply unpopular with the American people. And I don't know why. Okay. All right. I got to take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Okay, folks, go ahead and smash that like button, share this out with your friends, and go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Yes, just taking a little bit of break this morning. I had to drink some coffee. It's hard to talk for 2 hours straight. Pee break, too much coffee. Well, no, I'm here. I'm just drinking a little bit of coffee, and I'm trying to get ready for the second hour here because there's a lot we want to get through today. I do want to get to the San Francisco Pride. We've been talking about that. I'm going to just show you some of the behavior that has been going on at the San Francisco Pride. They've got public nudity. Okay, we know that public nudity is wrong. We know that it's illegal in San Francisco. It has been since 2012. Now they also had these masked activists, and I find this absolutely hilarious. No pride in genocide or something like that. Here.
Oh, I see.
So that we could leave. These people are crazy. They're absolutely insane. So mass trans activists marched during San Francisco Pride in 2024 while waving Palestinian flags and the LGBTQ flags, and then they declared Palestine as queer land. Okay. Hilarious. Okay. Because we all know that this is ridiculous. Like, we all know that Palestine would probably throw a lot of these people off roofs because that's what they do there. They throw gay people off of roofs. We don't do that here in America because, human rights. Like, we don't throw people off of roofs just because of what they do in their bedroom. And they protest America all the time and say that we don't, you have rights just as much as the next guy, the previous guy. We don't throw off straight people off roofs. We don't throw off gay people off roofs. You don't get extra rights in the United States. But if these organizers of the San Francisco Pride, they want to panhandle their way through the event, fine, whatever, do whatever you want. The least they can do is not have naive people who don't understand anything lecture the masses on things that they're deeply wrong on. Okay, so they're trying to lecture us, say like, oh, it's the Trump administration and the DEI programs. That's why these corporations are pulling out. Yes, I think that is true because the whole DEI programs, they were getting money off of that. So Anheuser-Busch, the Meta, there's tax credits. If you implement these kinds of policies in your businesses, Joe Biden would reward you for that. Totally illegal, totally unconstitutional, and insane. They give you money for doing fake crap. Okay, that's essentially what the Democrat Party is all about. For example, what is it? What was I talking about the other day? Oh, the food industry. So ADM, right? They produce Beyond Burgers, for example. Not, I'm giving you an example. Okay, so say like some food production company, they produce food, okay, and they process food. It's a food processing company, and Joe Biden said, "Hey, we're going to give you more money if you produce things that nobody wants, which are like these Beyond Burgers and more soy and um, more of this, food that nobody wants." Okay, the genetically insane modified foods that like are just like a science experiment. Okay, the fake meat and soy products. And he incentivized those. Okay. For example, the carbon sequestration projects, right? Joe Biden incentivized those through tax breaks for these corporations to do this, where they sequester their carbon and put it down into the ground, but it doesn't do anything. Okay, there's no production. It's different than oil pipelines. Okay, because we don't burn it. There's no energy there. We're just storing carbon, and he gives you money to do fake crap. Okay, that's what Joe Biden did. This is the same thing with the DEI crap and the ESG scores. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Yes, there was public nudity at the San Francisco Pride in 2024. There was also these masked individuals. They were wearing like these masks, and it's to cover up their identity because they know it's stupid to be waving around a Palestinian flag with an LGBTQ flag and holding up a sign that declares Palestine as queer land. Okay, are you kidding me? If you were to go there, they'd kill you. Okay. Here in the United States, we don't throw you off of roofs because of what you do in your bedroom. You have equal rights. You don't have extra rights, which is what they want here in the United States. You don't have extra rights, but you have human rights. You have rights where people can't kill you, right? We have laws in this country. Now, the organizers of the San Francisco Pride event, they're panhandling at this point. Okay, they want more money because corporations are pulling out. Why? Because Joe Biden is no longer there and paying them to do stupid nonsense like DEI. Okay, that's what Joe Biden did. He took your tax money and gave it to people for doing nothing. Okay, that's what socialism, communism is all about. Okay, these corporations, they got tax breaks, they got ESG scores, and depending on your ESG score, you'd get more money. Same thing with the food processing plants. If you were a food processing plant and you did, environmental type things like make Beyond Burgers or more soy products or things that people don't want. I thought it was so funny during the hurricane, Hurricane Helene. People were like rushing the stores and getting into the stores, and the only thing left in these stores were the Beyond Burgers, like the fake meat that nobody wants. You couldn't even give this to somebody. Somebody was just going to throw it away. Okay, but Joe Biden was paying companies to make that kind of crap, things that nobody wants. Okay, he doesn't give tax breaks to people who are actually doing things. No, he gives it to people who don't do anything and just implement these ridiculous programs like DEI, like, hey, oh, you hired a bunch of gay people. Great, here's some money. That's what Joe Biden did. Okay, which is just terrible. It's an attack on excellence. And, the last Pride event, and I shared the clip with you guys, they had the public nudity, these grown men prancing around in front of children and teenagers, completely nude, exposed in front of young children, although that's illegal. They also had these, trans activists out there saying, oh, Palestine is queer land. Like, come on, these are some of the most naive people in the world. You probably don't want them flaunting anything. You don't want them out there to try to get you money, okay? Because they're deeply wrong on so many issues. Deeply wrong, and sometimes they're acting illegally, like the publicly nude men. So I don't know. You can panhandle all you want. I don't think you're going to get those sponsorship backs because there's no reason to. Okay, the corporations have no reason to sponsor this. If they had sponsored it, they could take that back to the Biden organization and say, "Hey, look, we sponsored X amount of Pride programs. Give us money," and then they'd give them money. So the organizers have now learned the hard way that this is a personal problem for them, and they're going to actually have to get people to subscribe to what they're doing there in San Francisco with the Pride Parade, okay? And they're going to have to get people on board and support these Pride parades, because now you don't have the corporations who, inauthentically, get money for supporting you. You don't have Joe Biden in there forcing these companies to kind of support you in order to get money. Okay, so I want to get to this 15-minute city thing, because this is really hilarious, and I think that you guys are really going to get a kick out of it for your Friday. So this guy, he's a farmer, and he was explaining 15-minute cities, and he does it with chickens. So he illustrates it with chickens. Now, whenever I talk about 15-minute cities, it tends to be fodder for conspiracy theorists, okay? It's a grand cabal of global elites who are looking to control people by limiting them to a 15-minute radius and use their dystopian methods to control every aspect of your life, okay? People dismiss me when, I say, yeah, actually, that's not a conspiracy theory. That's true. People are like, Kat, get that out of your head. That's a conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy theory. Is it? Is it? Because I don't think it is. Take a listen to all of these clips I've pulled up. Here's the world. Most of them are World Economic Forum clips where they're actually talking about their dystopian methods to control your life. Here.
And the one final note I will make is that if you think about the benefits of digital money, there are huge potential gains. It's not just about digital forms of physical currency. You can have programmability, units of central bank currency with expiry dates. You could have, as I argue in my book, a potentially better and some people might see it, or a darker world where the government decides that units of central bank money can be used to purchase some things, but not other things that it deems less desirable, like, say, ammunition or drugs or pornography or something of the sort. And that is very powerful in terms of the use of a CBDC. And the one final note I will make.
Okay, so right there is digital currency. Okay, this is a dark dystopian method of digital currency, one form of currency, transitioning us to this one currency, global currency, digital currency. Now here's Klaus Schwab saying we don't need elections anymore. Hold on one second, let me pull this up. Klaus Schwab actually says we don't need elections anymore because AI can just do it for us and predict our elections for us. Here we go.
Is that digital technologies mainly have an analytical power. Now we go into a predictive power, and we have seen the first examples, and your company very much involved into it. But then the next step could be to go into a prescriptive mode, which means you do not even have to have elections anymore, because you can already predict, and afterwards you can say, why do we need elections? Because we know what the result will be.
Okay, I can't make this up, okay? When people are like, oh, that's a conspiracy theory, Kat. That's a conspiracy theory. The global elites are not trying to control us. They're trying to get you on digital currency, one currency, one global currency, and then they're also trying to get you to not vote anymore. Now they're trying to take your food away. This is another World Health Organization individual. He says our food systems are harming people, or harming the planet, okay? And our food systems need to be reevaluated because of the greenhouse gases, okay? So this is so crazy. Take a listen to this. Here we go.
Our food systems are harming the health of people and planet. Food systems contribute to over 30% of greenhouse gas emissions and account for almost 1/3 of the global burden of disease. Transforming food systems is therefore essential by shifting towards healthier, diversified, and more plant-based diets. If food systems delivered healthy diets for all, we could save 8 million lives per year. WHO is committed to supporting countries to develop and implement policies to improve diets and fight climate change. I'm therefore very pleased that over 130 countries have signed the COP28 UAE Declaration on Climate and Health. Together, we can protect and promote the health of both people and planet. I thank you.
Okay, so they want to control what you eat. That's basically what he was saying there. Now I want to share one more with you. I could go on and on to prove, and what I'm trying to do here is prove my point that they are wanting to control what you eat, where you go, and there are dystopian methods that they have planned for you. They want to track people, and they want to. It's an individual carbon footprint tracker. Okay, they want to track people, see what your carbon footprint is like, and it's not me saying that. I just, out of thin air. This is this guy saying that he wants to implement some sort of carbon footprint tracker, and here's what it would be like. Here we go.
We're developing through technology an ability for consumers to measure their own carbon footprint. What does that mean? That's where are they traveling? How are they traveling? What are they eating? What are they consuming on the platform? So individual carbon footprint tracker. Stay tuned. We don't have it operational yet, but this is something that we're working on.
So, the reason I bring all of this up this morning is because, I'm just so sick of you're a conspiracy theory cat, and that's just like, what are you talking about? I just played several examples for you where they're outright saying out loud with their mouths the dystopian methods that they have planned to control every aspect of your life, right down to what you eat, what you wear, where you go. So Wikipedia tells us that a 15-minute city is nothing more than urban planning concept in which most daily necessities and services such as work, shopping, education, healthcare, and leisure can easily be reached in a 15-minute walk or bike ride from any point in the city to reduce car dependency, promote healthy and sustainable living, and improve overall quality for city dwellers. Got it? Got it? Okay, so it's a good thing, according to Wikipedia. This farmer, okay, is going to explain 15-minute cities for us. Okay, he's going to explain it for us and what it is actually all about. And I like this, and I think that it's a good one for your Friday. Here we go.
Minute city. So come on in, let me show you what a 15-minute community looks like.
Well, I'm excited to see this, Randy, because you always break things down into nice practical ways, right?
Here we go. These residents of the 15-minute community, they're not locked in, but they just stay there. They're free to come and go, but they don't. So let's take a step inside. Everything they need in their life is right here in their 15-minute community. A water bowl, a feed tray. They own nothing, but they are exceptionally happy. And you know how happy they are is by how many eggs they produce. And it's so wonderful because I get to take everything that they produce and they just keep producing. So let me go in here. And here we go. Each of them have their own house. Now, in a 15-minute community, you don't get a lot of variation in housing. They're all pretty much the same. But we can take a look and collect their production. There's a few. There's a few more. And there we go.
And they're none the wiser.
And they're happy.
Yeah.
I get to take what they produce. They're free to come and go, but the world is so scary for them out there. They will never leave.
They will never leave. I absolutely love this guy. This guy made my day. It's so hilarious. As you can see, the chickens, they're so happy that they can hardly just sit still, and they're running around there in that chicken coop, and they know nothing else, and they love it there. Okay, they absolutely love it. They're probably also eating bugs. Okay, and that's what they want you to do, the World Economic Forum. So could they leave their 15-minute city? Of course. Do they want to? No, because they have everything right there that they need. So while the chickens are happy, no one is happier than the farmer, obviously, because he walks in and he collects the production for himself. And the chickens, they get the exact amount they need. Okay, so they got the food, they got the water, and that's it. And the farmer gets everything else. He reaps the benefits of their production. The chicken farmer, he gets all the eggs, since he's the elite group of leaders that are in charge of the 15-minute city. Okay, so total paradise. We, the people, should be so lucky to have something like a 15-minute city. It'd be like living in the Hunger Games. Everybody loved those movies, right? No, of course. Both me and the farmer, we're being snarky here. I don't want to live in a 15-minute city. You don't want to live in a 15-minute city. I've talked about the housing and BlackRock and, how Democrats are always like, the housing, it's so expensive. Okay, well, there's an easy fix to this. Stop mandating and regulating our private developers and our small landlords here in the state of Illinois and trying to outs them so that BlackRock could come in and build all of this so-called affordable housing, and they get all the spoils and riches. So who's going to be the global elites, or who's going to be the elite group of leaders in charge of the 15-minute city in Bloomington? Probably whatever apartment complex owner, so like say a BlackRock, and I'm using this as an example, if they were to go with a 15-minute city, which is what their intentions are for the city of Bloomington. Okay, downtown Bloomington streetscape is just one step. They want to revitalize the city into a smart plan or smart cities. That's also normal. They've looked at this smart cities. That's 15-minute cities. Okay, they've changed the words because we've caught on. So the smart cities, same thing. The people who are moving in with these big skyscraper, and he even said it in the video here, you don't get a lot of variation with the housing. They all look the same. That's what BlackRock does. They're going to have these big skyscraper type housing. And really what ultimately is going to happen is BlackRock is going to get all the money. And your mom or your mom and pops and your neighborhood or your neighbors who are landlords, they're going to be forced out of the community because they can't keep up with the mandates and the regulation coming out of Springfield and coming out of these cities via ordinances. They can't keep up with the regulation, and it's getting too expensive to be a landlord. And the only people who can come in, or who they want really to come in, are these. And that's why they've attacked single family housing. There's been bans on single family housing for certain municipalities in the state of Illinois. Cam Buckner's legislation tried to do that with the single family housing and banning it, just outright banning it, to where you can't even build homes with bedrooms in them. Okay, if you have a family of 4, you can't fit them all in a shoebox apartment. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. So I'm being snarky. Obviously, I'm mocking people who support 15-minute cities here. So is the farmer. He understands the ridiculousness of a 15-minute city. And it's terrifying. It's terrifying because the future that the left has in store for you is they want to take total control, and the elites at the tippy top are going to reap all of the benefits and reap everything that you produce. And you are never going to want to leave your 15-minute city. Why? Because everything you need is right there, the bare minimum to keep you there. And they'll never leave, and you'll never leave. And you could leave, but you won't because they provide everything you need. And yeah, this is a big reason why there's panic now, because the smart cities, the 15-minute cities, it's all going to stop because President Donald Trump is in, and he's going to do everything he can to get rid of it, I'm sure. But this has been a global initiative, these 15-minute cities, and they're wrong. It's deeply, deeply worrisome, I should say. All right, you guys, I got to take a quick break. We're going to come right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Sheeple turns us into sheeple. Exactly. Go ahead, comment. The chicken analogy is brilliant. I know. I saw it this morning and I was like, oh, this is so amazing. And I'm like, yes, he's being snarky, obviously. And he's, being sarcastic. He's like, yeah, a 15-minute city. Here, we can play the here, I'll actually. Okay.
They will never leave.
Doodle do is just do it.
I don't have to put a fence around them. And here we are.
It's an ideal world. I don't see anything wrong with it. Everything is provided for them. They're cared for. They're happy. They're together.
Yeah.
It's all convenient.
What? So anybody who wants to understand what a 15-minute community is, here you go. And there's only one boss. And that boss provides everything for them.
Yeah, so I thought that was hilarious. That's a good one. We're gonna be right back. We're gonna go fill up my coffee. We'll be right back. Just stay tuned. You're listening to Conservative Cat. And we're back. Go ahead and smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I did want to hit this one more time because it's so very important that we chat a little bit about this complaint. Desi Anderson, she was a former candidate, a previous Illinois state representative. For Illinois state representative, she ran against Sharon Chung. In a formal complaint with the U.S. Department of Education, the complaint demands that the DOE enforce the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act and immediately act against violations tied with the All In Democracy Challenge, a non-government organization affiliated with other non-government organizations, National Student Clearinghouse, and the NSLVE. This is an NGO affiliated with illegal gathering of confidential and personal data about students. Okay, so they want, this complaint wants the DOE to take action. Okay, the legal filing asserts that universities sharing student data with these organizations are violating FERPA. Okay, so that's what we're looking at here. And we don't want to stray too far away from that because that alone is a big deal. If they're giving this data to these organizations, and it can be any organization. Now, right now, it's we can't dismiss entirely, okay, the importance of where these organizations come from, who is affiliated with these organizations, why the universities are giving the information to these organizations. Okay, the who, what, where, and why. Okay, so these organizations, as somebody had pointed out, Obama originated. These are linked to the DNC at the very least, right? So we have to know that's the who, and why are the universities, and to ask that question, why would the universities give this information to the students, is because they have an interest in getting Democrats elected. Why? Because to the tune of billions of dollars they could be getting from the state of Illinois Democrats, they always push for this, billions and billions of dollars at a federal level to, fund public education or higher public education or higher education. They have an interest in getting these people elected, and they're going about this obviously legally, allegedly, right? This is the complaint. If this is true, then this might be a reason why they're doing it. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Yes, an explosive story this morning. We covered it in the 6 o'clock hour. I want to cover it a little bit more here in the 7 o'clock hour. If you're just tuning in, I was shocked to learn that my personal student data was being shared without my explicit consent for voter engagement efforts. That's what Braden Gonzalez, the current student at Illinois State University, said. As a student, I trusted my university to protect my enrollment information, not hand it over to third-party organizations like the National Student Clearinghouse, the National Study of Learning, Voting, and Engagement. I never agreed to have my information used and tracked, I never agreed to have my information used and tracked, my voting habits used to track my voting habits. I never agreed to any of that for this Get Out the Vote initiative run by nonprofit organizations called All In Campus Democracy Challenge. So what am I talking about? A formal complaint has been launched with the DOE, the U.S. Department of Education, by Desi Anderson, a previous Illinois state representative candidate. She ran against Sharon Chung, okay? The lead attorney in this case had said that the U.S. Secretary of Education, it requires them to intervene, and according to the reading of FERPA, which is this law, it's called the Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act. According to that reading, they have an obligation to go to intervene and prevent universities from unlawfully disclosing student records under the guise of voter engagement efforts. Okay, if universities are providing student data for ballot harvesting, this is a clear violation of federal law, and the DOE has a duty to act immediately. Okay, so that's what the attorney representing Desi Anderson says in this press release. They also call for the complete termination of federal funds unless they cease participation in providing these NGOs the student information. And I can't help but ask the question, why? Why would the universities give the student information to these specific NGOs? Well, and in the complaint, there's a nice little flow chart, kind of complicated, but there's ties to the DNC. Obviously, these non-government organizations have ties to the DNC, have ties to Democrats. Okay, these are Democrat partisan nonprofits. Okay, now they'll say they're nonpartisan, but they have ties to the DNC. Obviously, the public universities, they have a vested interest, or they have an interest in Democrat politicians getting elected, because Democrat politicians promise funding to these public universities and to higher education, which we all know how that system works. I went to school with somebody who couldn't read in higher education, okay? And she was a sophomore and in journalism, okay? And she actually couldn't read. I'm not kidding you on that, okay? So that, if that's a testament to how the public education system is run, even on higher education campuses, okay, on universities or college campuses, if that's not a testament, I don't know what is, okay, as to how these are being run. But it's the same thing in our K through 12 schools. The fat cats are taking all of the money, and it's not going towards furthering the education or providing a better education for the students. It never does. Okay, when you give them more money, what winds up happening is the fat cats in the school system, they just wind up getting fatter and fatter and fatter and padding their pockets with more and more and more money. This is why Barry Riley makes a $200,000 pension. This is why some of the highest paid employees, government employees, are university professors or administrators of universities. It's a scam. These are people who don't want to go work in the private sector, and they get into college, they never leave, and they don't want to make anything or create anything. They would much rather stay there and study things. Okay. And they don't ever want to leave and apply that study. Okay. So and they don't want to do it, or they do it, and they do it on your dime. Okay, and a lot of people are screaming at the sky, you cut all of our study or money or our funding for studying. And then you look into some of these studies, and I found out that they're studying things like trying to ask a cancer patient their sexual orientation and how to appropriately ask a cancer patient how they identify sexually. What? That's what you're studying? Like, that, it's ridiculous. Now, anything worth any studying that is going on in these higher education institutions, any kind of studying that's worth anything, the private sector funds. So like a corporation will come in and they want a question answered, and they will go to the university and they'll say, hey, we want you to study this. Here's the money to do it and come up with an answer for us. Okay, so that happens all of the time. If it's worth studying, the private sector would fund it. Okay. So like say, I don't know, cancer medicine or cancer research, it's a private company and they're researching medicines and thits like that. They'll go to the university and they'll say, hey, can you answer this question for us? Here's a bunch of money. Okay. If it's worth anything, the tax dollars wouldn't need to be going towards it. I'm going to be honest with you. Okay, so I want to get to this story. Speaking about education, this woke superintendent rants about keeping boys out of girls' sports, and it's just like women's suffrage or whatever. So he's advocating for boys being in women's sports. Okay, so let me start here with it's in Maine. So he's a Maine superintendent. Let me pull this up. Sorry. Yep, I got it. Okay. So he's a Maine superintendent and he's defending males in women's sports. And I mean, that's bad enough, right? Just defending men in women's sports is absolutely ridiculous. Obviously, they have a biological advantage. That's a slap to women everywhere, slap in the face to women everywhere who fought for equality, for their rights, and now we are having like this special rights, this group, this population who are trying to trump the rights of women in order for them to obtain special rights. Okay, so this woke superintendent feels that this is the morally superior thing to do, is to allow boys in women's sports. And this is the Maine superintendent, and he's reaffirming his commitment to allow males in female spaces by comparing it to things like the civil rights movement. Okay, so take a listen to this.
In our country's history, there have been many civil rights struggles, including but not limited to fights for women's rights to vote, for racial equality, and for gay marriage. In each of these fights, the opposition in part was driven by fear and attempts to ostracize or other people who looked, act, or believed in something different. Today, I see that happening again with our transgender or non-binary students, and in particular, our transgender athletes. When I came to this district, I was focused on the work of educating our students and improving our outcomes. I wasn't interested in proactively speaking out on social matters or political matters. That said, it is simply unacceptable that there are efforts by the federal government and some in our state to ostracize a student population that is estimated to be less than 1% of our student population. In light of this, I cannot continue to sit silently.
Okay, so he's so dumb. Really, he's just so dumb. Because what he's doing here, he's calling for the end of women's sports because he wants boys to be in them. Okay, so that's ending women's sports. And he's claiming at the same time that that's advancing women's rights. There's a contradiction there that's very, very extreme, and it will never be logically correct, okay? So according to Maine Wire, this is a Portland public school superintendent. His name is Ryan Skellen, and he doubled down on the district's commitment to equity, and he's going to continue to allow trans-identifying boys, biological boys, to participate in girls' sports. And he compared that the controversial political climate surrounding this issue is like the civil rights movement, the women's suffrage movements, and that this is a similar issue. It's not. You're calling for the elimination of women's sports, and you're also saying that this is advancing women's rights. There's a contradiction there, you see, because you're eliminating women's sports and women's spaces. So in a nearly 20-minute speech that he gave, this guy, Ryan, he was hired in 2023, by the way, he affirmed the Portland School's mission of equity, specifically saying that he wants to close the achievement gaps for students learning English and for participation of transgender students in sports. Okay, so he wants to close the English gaps, which I don't know. That would probably be, take away education resources from students who are doing well in English and then diverting those resources to students who do poorly in English. Okay, so they're going to rob students who do well and try to get that's what I'd imagine is going on with the whole English thing and filling in the gaps for students learning English. So Ryan here, the superintendent, he said that he is not typically interested in this 20-minute speech. He said that he wasn't particularly interested in speaking out on social issues or political issues. Okay. But then he says, but I can't stay silent on this issue because I can't sit here silently. Oh boy. And what's so crazy to me in that little speech there, and you heard it, he talks about the LGBTQ population, the students being like 1%, and he says that they're significantly at risk. They're at an increased risk for negative outcomes, including the risk of suicide. And like I said, the problem with suicide in the trans community, what's going on there is when you lie to people, it destroys their self-esteem. It destroys who they are as a person. And the best thing that we could do for people in the trans community is not lie to them and tell them, hey, you are a boy, hey, you are a girl, and stop with the deranged thoughts, right? That's the truth is the best thing for these kids. And, it's totally ridiculous and it's reprehensible, really, for him to claim that, not allowing males and female sports is somehow going to increase the risk for suicide. That's totally ridiculous. And he says that it justifies putting fairness and safety at risk, too, by the way, because it's a safety risk to have women. To have girls participating in sports with boys. I remember when I was in gym class with boys, I had a big old ball thrown at me. It was like a yoga ball, and after this, they banned it from the school. That we couldn't play it anymore because I got it thrown at me, and I broke I think my wrist and I sprained my ankle. It was a nightmare. And a boy threw this ball at me and I went flying and I hit the bleachers. It was called bleacher ball and it's like a yoga ball and you throw it. They banned the sport because I got hurt so badly, which was kind of funny. But yeah, even, girls and boys participating in PE together. We actually at my school, which was a good thing, it was called personal fitness and it was mainly girls. It was like an unspoken thing where girls would leave the PE class and we'd leave the PE class to boys and we would go do like a fitness class with an instructor. And it was an unspoken thing where the females gravitated there because why? Females don't like participating with boys in sports because it's hard and it hurts. Okay. And you will be hurt when you're going to get hurt. So he's trying to say that there's this suicide risk and that justifies the public or the fairness issue and the safety issue. But here's the thing, the suicide thing, there is nothing to indicate that just because, you tell somebody the truth that they're not a boy or not a girl or whatever, if you just tell them the truth about who they are as their sex, there's nothing to indicate that they're going to go kill themselves because of that. You can do it in love. It's people like him who are destroying the education system. I've got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat. Very liberal, but inland is conservative. The coast controls the state. Huh. Very interesting. I'd like hearing about this kind of stuff because we live in the state of Illinois, obviously. Chicago controls the rest of the state. So downstate has very little say in much of anything. So to quote this guy, I'm going to just quote him here. He says, "It's simply unacceptable that there are efforts by the federal government and some in our state to ostracize the student population that is estimated to be less than 1% of our student population. Our LGBTQ students are, especially our trans youth, are significantly increased for risk of negative outcomes, including suicide, in part because their experience of not being seen, understood, and respected for who they are." No, so the whole thing about the suicide, like I said, it's not really, they're not, you're right. They're not being seen for who they are. For who they are is actually their biological sex, okay? And constantly lying to them is contributing to that suicide rate. Affirming is actually what is contributing to the suicide rate. So when you affirm these deranged, I really, how do I put this? Not very thought out. They've got like deranged thoughts, right? About them wanting to be a girl, wanting to be a boy, the opposite sex. Okay. And these are kind of like, how do I say it? Like they can't even describe what they're feeling. Okay. And when you affirm that, what you're doing is lying to them because that's not the reality. And when you lie to people, it hurts them. Okay, so this is just basic common sense, and that's why there's suicide going on and it needs to stop. So he says it's simply unacceptable that people like him are. He says it's simply unacceptable for the efforts of the federal government and some in our state to ostracize the student population. It's unacceptable for people like him to be operating our public schools, okay, and to be say that there are these suicide thing, like suicide is going to increase if we don't allow men and women's sports. That's what he's saying here, and I just think that's totally unacceptable. So this is interesting. If you guys missed the show yesterday, you guys can watch it. There's a cartoon out there. It's a DEI cartoon. There's a tall kid and they take the box away from him, which is so interesting because who defines who has a leg up and who doesn't, or who defines who has more privilege and who doesn't? Okay, so tall people, you took his box away, but did you know that tall people actually have more of a risk for things like arthritis? They can't fit in airline seats really all that well, right? So taking away his box, did they think about that? You know, in certain situations, he might actually be in a trickier spot, or he might not have the privilege that you think he has. Okay, that's what's so wrong with DEI, is that these people define who has the most privilege and who not, and who defines it? It's the global elite or the elitist. This elite group of people define who has privilege and who doesn't, based on things that are really kind of out of your control, like white male. You know, so. Relating to your cartoon from yesterday, why would we not give women a step when they should just figure it out on the road? So yesterday I said, you know, with the box situation, I'd have to pull up the cartoon again. With the box situation, you had a tall kid, you had a short kid, and then you had a kid in a wheelchair, and they all were given boxes. Obviously, the kid in the wheelchair to go see over this fence. Okay, and it's a District 87 DEI training. Okay, and they all had this box, and they took the box away from the tall kid, and then they gave that box to the little girl, the shorter student, and she got on top of the box and she could see over the fence. The tall kid could see over the fence just fine, and then the wheelchair kid, he got some sort of ramp for him, and he could see over the fence. And I suggested that all of the kids should have been able to figure out the solution for themselves, and we don't take away the box from the tall kid. We just have the students go figure out for themselves. Now, what you're saying is, why would we want to give women a step up? why a step up? No. So there's a law. This isn't allowing women to have their own spaces is not a step up. Okay. This is what's current status quo. Okay. We're not taking away that it's law, the Title IX. Federal law, right? We divided women's sports to preserve their protection. Okay, this isn't extra. We just split it. Okay, so the little girl in the box, she got an extra box, and then the guy, the wheelchair guy, he got a ramp. This is extra. With the women's, this is not affording women extra rights. This is a right that was already preserved for them in law, Title IX, and then it was all changed to include men, okay, or men who say they're women. So that's not giving women anything extra. They've already got their spaces. They're just being taken away. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. I wanted to read some of your comments. You can always text me 309-451-9299. You can also comment on the stream, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I lived in Portland, Maine for 5 years. The southern coast of Maine is very, very liberal, but inland is conservative. The coast controls the state. So we can kind of relate to that here in Illinois. We know what it's like here. Chicago controls the rest of the state. So downstate voices don't really have much of a voice at all. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the superintendent in that, he's saying that the suicide is going to increase, or the threats of suicide are going to increase because we don't allow men and women's spaces. And, somebody said, oh, well, we're giving women extra rights, essentially, and we're giving them extra rights by allowing them to have their separate spaces. This has been the status quo. Look at Title IX. We separated this out for a reason because of women's safety. Okay, so it's nothing like the civil rights movement. It's nothing like the women's suffrage movement, which he compared it to. This Maine superintendent, he's from Portland, Maine. Apparently, it's really liberal there, but it's conservative inland, which is interesting. People on the coast are super liberal in controlling the rest of the state. But that is so ridiculous to suggest that suicide rates are going to go up because here's what he says. Okay, he says, it's terrible, or our LGBTQ students, and especially our transgender youth, are at a significantly increased risk for negative outcomes, including suicide, in part of their experiences of not being seen, understood, and respected for who they are. Actually, it's quite the opposite. I think that the affirming of this delusional or of this inexplainable feeling that they're having, and the affirmation of that and the lying that is going on to these trans individuals is what's killing themselves. It's factually incorrect for him to claim that allowing males into female sports, not allowing males into female sports, is going to increase the risk of suicide. It's just factually incorrect. And it's disgusting that he justifies this by, putting fairness and safety at risk. It's fair for women to have a separate space. It's safe for women to have a separate space. He's beholden. He's doing this, and he's jeopardizing, and he's saying, screw you fairness, screw you safety, because he's beholden to an ideology. Okay, that's what's going on here. He's beholden to an ideology, and that's what is so wrong with our education system. Is you've got a bunch of people in there who are beholden to an ideology, and they will sacrifice safety, they will sacrifice fairness. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Good friends are always being honest with you. They don't let you walk into a burning room, drive home drunk. Yes. Sometimes love can be painful, but stopping someone from hurting themselves is hard. Why do women have to share their spaces with men? Men have their own space to use their own language. Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, Title IX, the women have already fought for this. Okay. Like, women's rights movements and everything like that. They already fought for this, and they said, hey, we want to be separated from men in sports, in Title IX in schools. We want our own sports where we don't have to be unsafe around men. Okay. Yeah, and like Chad said, they have their own spaces as well. I think it's really interesting, the military. So there's actually special ops that most women, like there's no Navy SEAL that's a woman, right? The left has fought for women to serve in the military. They're also fighting for women to be drafted. It's very interesting that men, their spaces tend to be, like the military. That was always, stemming back to history. It's their spaces, the military. They were drafted. And there's this understanding that they have a biological advantage. Okay. And what is happening here with the blurring of the lines is that we are saying nowadays that there is no biological advantage, that men don't have a biological advantage over women, and that women and men are the exact same. And that's not true. And, I think it's really interesting. They say, oh, we have to celebrate our differences. But then they, include men into these sports, and they, say, oh, well, trans men are women. No, there are differences, but see, it's so illogical, and they don't even have their own ideology straight. Okay, because they say that we should celebrate our differences. So yes, we do have differences. Women and men are different, and we should celebrate the fact that we are different, and we should have our own spaces. But they want to blur the line and like make us all the same, because that's really what communism is. The delusion reminds me of someone who's skin and bone and thinks that they're fat. Yeah, so anorexia, right? You wouldn't tell an anorexic person that they're fat, okay, if they think that they're fat. You give them what they want, they'll die because they'll quit eating. I think, and think that they're fat. It's the same. Yeah, it's the anorexia thing. So if you're anorexic, you wouldn't tell an anorexic person that they're fat, obviously, because that's not reality. If you're transgender, if you're, a boy and you think that you're a girl, you won't tell them that they're girl because they're not. And lying to them is what makes them want to kill themselves. Why? Because you're saying something, you're affirming something that is not reflective of their own reality. And you'll hear from trans people all the time, whenever, they're trying to get to that state of womanhood, right? Or girlhood. Just go look at Dylan Mulvaney's TikTok. Dylan Mulvaney is the guy that was promoting the Bud Light cans. If you were to go look at his TikTok, I actually feel really bad for the guy, but then I remember, oh, he probably just got into this for the money and to be around women because he's a predator, kind of thing. So, but you go through and you look and you see all of the surgeries he had to go through. I mean, his face was reconstructed. And he the pain that you have to go through, and even then he still looks like a man. Like, I still look at Dylan Mulvaney and I'm like, okay, you still look like a dude, man. Like, I can tell that you're transgender, and they will never reach that point of feeling like a woman. Why? Because they're not. And when that reality sinks in, when they will never ever ever be a woman because they can't physically, it's impossible. When that reality starts to sink in, that's when they kill themselves, because everybody's told them that yes you are, but then reality hits, and then you're like, no, I'm not. I can't ever become a woman because it's too hard for me to. Why? Because there's a biological reality there. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Yes, we've went through so much this morning. Yes, your water rates are going up in Bloomington, May 1st, 2025. They went up by 33% in last year, and then they're going to go up next year, 2026. And who do you have to thank for that? Well, Cody Hendricks, Jenna Kearns, the people who voted for it. The only people who didn't vote for it, Sheila Montney, Kent Lee. Okay, and Jenna Kearns, she voted to triple your waterway too. And she also doesn't say the Pledge of Allegiance at the council meetings. All right. You guys have a blessed rest of your day. Bye-bye. I love you. That's what we talked about in the 6 o'clock hour. We talked about the complaint with Desi Anderson. She lodged it formally with the U.S. Department of Education saying that universities are giving information to these nonprofit organizations who are then, analyzing the data and then trying to manipulate election outcomes. Okay, so this is what the complaint says. Desi Anderson launched it. We talked about that. We also talked about San Francisco Pride. They lost all kinds of funding, the $300,000 or so. They also we also talked about the World Economic Forum and this farmer. He had a video out there with the chickens, and he compared the chickens living in the coop to the 15-minute cities. 15-minute cities are designed to control you, and they're going to use their dark dystopian methods to try to control you, figure out what you eat, what you wear, where you go, and they're going to try to control you in these 15-minute cities, and then they're going to try to reap the benefits of what you produce. And he did this, the farmer. It was a brilliant illustration. So you guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye. Love you so much. We'll talk again soon.